evening everyone. Myself Shauradip Odhikari. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this highly anticipated webinar on the hard problem of consciousness organized by Modoc Trainer Academy. This is a fascinating topic that delves into the enigmatic nature of human awareness, a subject that has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. Now, I would like to share a few words with you about our today's eminent speaker. We are truly honored to have with us an exceptional speaker, Dr. Shankar Basu, whose expertise and curiosity-driven approach makes him a perfect guide for exploring this profound subject. Dr. Shankar Basu is a computational biologist with a wide range of research interests spanning protein folding, design, dynamics, and interactions to membrane proteins and molecular evolution. With a foundation in structural bioinformatics and computational biophysics, he approaches complex scientific puzzles using tools like linear algebra, graph theory, artificial intelligence, and statistical methods. His deep belief in trial and error and empirical observation has led to remarkable contributions in his field, including exploring biotherapeutics through peptide tinkering. What sets Dr. Shankar Basu apart is his ability to seamlessly integrate mathematical and computational frameworks to unravel biological mysteries. His passion for understanding complex systems and his interdisciplinary insights will surely enrich our understanding of consciousness in unique and thought-provoking ways. Currently, Dr. Shankar Basu is an assistant professor in the Department of Microbiology in Ashutosh College. Let's make this a truly interactive and enriching experience. So without further delay, let us welcome Dr. Shankar Basu to enlighten us on this captivating topic. Now, I humbly request to Dr. Shankar Basu, sir, please start your valuable lecture. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Thanks for very high, lofty words, I would say. I'm just a curiosity-driven researcher, and this is something that I'm no expert in this field, but I've been listening to talks available, in the YouTube on consciousness, and I did my PhD from a laboratory where this was one of the topics that were being exercised as a scientific discipline. So I had a little bit of perception about the subject from my PhD days. So today I actually framed this talk in little bit of bilingual mode because part of it, it was actually this exact talk I delivered in the Ashutosh Charcha Kendra in our staff room lecture a few months back, and my dear colleague, senior Deepadi, she got me connected to this academy. So I'm very thankful to Deepadi and the academy itself. But I would try to make it in English only, but there would be certain areas, certain terminologies for which I won't have an alternative but to use the native languages, Sanskrit and Bengali. So, so this coinage, hard problem of consciousness, this coinage has been made by Professor David Charnes, who um, who had his training in mathematics and physics, but then later turned into psychologists, and then to a Western philosopher. And he's one of the very rare dualist Westerners uh, who is who is an exception to their uh, more kind of common framework of reductionist materialism. So in that sense, he's a bit different, and he also has very high command on the Eastern uh, uh, ancient texts. So that also has enriched him. um, so the basic idea, this why is it called the hard problem? So if there is a hard problem, there's supposed to be some easy problems of consciousness, but truly speaking there is no easy problem of consciousness. But the correlation studies that the neuroscience faculties are doing these days, especially after the emergence of an experimental technique called fMRI, which is functional magnetic resonance imaging. uh, so they actually try to correlate certain emotions or certain feelings with the part of the brain that is responding to it, and the kind of signals that are being generated by means of some voltage versus time plots. But that's all. So essentially, if you have a mosquito bite somewhere, if you have certain pain in your body, certain emotional pain, certain sense of joy and happiness, so all these now can be correlated with different parts of the brain through these fMRI studies. But they seem to be not explaining that why this subjective experience is there at all. So the the other school of thoughts which are counterintuitive to this vision, that they propose that uh, it could be that we are like zombies, like robots, without having any subjective feeling, but still a certain machinery through which uh, you know all the inputs are processed or absorbed, and all the outputs are produced, but without having any subjective feeling of pain or of I mean, there's nothing that I can say that I feel it like this experience, this feeling of subjectivity, this can be absent. So that is a theory that is an extremist view, of course. So he's the school of thoughts that they're coming up with such theories, they kind of deny the experimental data that is available to each one of us through our conscious stream of experiences. So, to go ahead, I would like to read out a little passage from David Charm's talk, uh, which will get us more involved and more intensely involved into the matter, into the core matter of consciousness. So what is consciousness? That's the fundamental question. So it's not so easy to define consciousness, and even with the limitation of the English language, because this was something, an idea which were ancient, and which was ancient, and which was brought about much before any Western civilizations came into the historical data. So we used to call it in our Sanskrit or Pali or ancient language. There were words like chit. There were words like bhuma or bodhi, or you can say chetana and chaitanya. So if you if I may quote Ramprasad Sen, so the song, Amar Chetona Chaitanya Kore De Ma Chaitanyamoi, this cannot be translated into English because there is no word that can stand for subtle differences between these very closely related perceptions. So let us try to read out from this David Charm's talk. So he says that right now you have a movie playing inside your head. It's an amazing multi-track movie with surround sound and vision, a 3D vision for what you are seeing and hearing. But that's just the start. Your movie has smell, taste, and touch. It includes a sense of your body, pain, hunger, and even orgasms. It also encompasses emotions like anger and happiness. Moreover, it features memories like scenes from your childhood played before you. There's a constant voiceover narrative in your stream of conscious thinking. Rabindranath, in one of his songs, probably coins this as Chetona Dhara, which I find very, very interesting, very intriguing stream of conscious thinking. At the heart of this movie is you experiencing all of this directly. This movie is your stream of consciousness. Actually, this is Chetona Dhara, the subject of experience of the mind and the world. So see, so the world are full of objects. Everything that I can imagine, from an alpine to an elephant, are certain objects. So they are bulk objects, they are macroscopic objects, but they are subtle objects also. So they are mind matters. So if we close our eyes and introspect, self-inquire about who we are, just sitting still and what we call meditating, you will see that waves of thoughts and feelings and emotions are being popped up within the ocean of the mind. But we are not the mind. We are observing the mind as a congregation or a assimilation of subtle objects, subtle mental objects. So at the heart of this movie, experiencing all directly is you, and everything else are objects. It may be a bulk object, it may be a subtle object. Each of us is conscious, and we all have our own inner movie. So this inner movie, the way David Charms explains this, and is I mean, I really like the analogy of this inner movie, because it is like that. It's a continuous stream of experience from the very moment we we popped up into this universe as a soul, and I don't know what will happen after death. I don't know, but of course there is something that seems to be never ending. That's the subject. That's the subject, and everything else is the object. That is the pure consciousness. So consciousness is also what makes life worth living. Without it, nothing in our lives would have meaning or value. Yet consciousness remains one of the most mysterious phenomena in the universe. Why are we conscious? Why do we have these inner movies? Why aren't we simply robots who process input and produce output without experiencing anything? Currently, nobody knows the answer to these questions. So essentially, where we are focusing in this talk is are these questions. So why are we conscious? And here comes the heart problem. So in the last century, in the 20th century, there were a hard, rigid boundary, across disciplines. For example, physics and then a whole bunch of chemistry and biology and social sciences, the humanity-driven subjects. But there were gaps. They were not enough bridges, so to speak. So every faculty worked in their own way, but the neuroscience scientists and the psychologists, they studied brain and behavior respectively, but they never uttered, rarely uttered something as fundamental as consciousness, because it was an um it was a object oriented scientific methodology. So if you want to so what psychologists do, they basically try to correlate behavior with human nature and situations. And what neuroscience scientists do, as I just said before, fMRI and etc., they always try to correlate parts of the brain and the type of impulse that is being responded in response to some stimuli from outside or something from inside as well. So but you do not have to have consciousness in this picture to explain behavior, to explain brain correlation with these feeling of pain and joy and etc. So but that scenario changed somewhat in the last 20-25 years, which is a very good thing. So the boundaries are actually dissolving, so disciplines are getting they're getting intertwined, so to speak. So now there have been a serious volume of research that has been carried out in the last 20-25 years on the science of consciousness, while there was one notion that there can never be a science of consciousness, because science by nature is objective and consciousness by nature is subjective. So people argued that there cannot be a science of consciousness, but that started to change from the beginning of this millennium. And prominent scientists, physicists like Roger Penrose, Nobel laureate, you all know, and Francis Crick, he's also a Nobel laureate. He's a neuroscientist. So they actually emphasize the fact that now might be the time for science to tackle consciousness. So we have the repertoires, we have the armory, so we can now press up for our search for this much weighted theory of consciousness, scientific theory of consciousness that works. The important thing is that works. So these correlation studies that I was talking about, these correlation studies cannot explain and do not really extend their effort to explain why consciousness is there at all, why is this subjective experience. So David Chalmers, he comes up with the notion that there might be some crazy radical idea that might be a path breaking thing, which was never thought as simple as this before, but it could actually solve this problem. But it's of course not an overnight a problem that can be solved overnight, because it's the toughest problem in science at the moment. Why are we conscious at all? So to go along with those radical ideas, there are one gentleman I would like to mention. Just I'm trying to this Giulio Tononi. Giulio Tononi, he is one of the pioneers in this science of consciousness studies. Has a very radical idea about something called the theory is called information integration theory. But before going into this particular theory, we would just like to discuss a little bit about the platform that we are currently in. As I said, there is a chain of explanation. So physics takes the opportunity to explain chemistry. Chemistry can explain biology. Biology can explain in parts, of course, not in entirety, but that biology can explain behavior, and therefore it is connected to psychology, and then psychology can be connected to neuroscience. Lot of interdisciplinary science are coming up, etc. But consciousness does not fit into this chain. It does not fit. So why? Because it is subjective. And the other thing I would like to mention here is that people are nowadays, every one of us are having to deal with AI, artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is something that we cannot do without almost in our regular life also. We everybody of every one of us do Google, so that is a simple AI. Then Chat GPT, etc., etc. There are a lot of things coming up, and there are new AI systems which can paint, which can compose poetry, which can write essays, which can do wonders, and you cannot distinguish that this has been done by an AI or this has been done by a human or an artist, or actually it's just a machine. So it's coming up leaps and bounds, and from that we have come to a era that we call reality plus. So reality is the reality that we live in, which of course not reality according to Advaita Vedanta, but I'm not going to that right now. But the apparent reality that we go to bed and get up from the bed in the morning, and this reality is not limited to our senses, the eye and the ear and everything. So there is a reality plus also. We are always communicating with people from different parts of the globe nowadays, etc. And there are this revolution by AI systems, etc. So but that also, given that you know there has been a very what should I say, very very intriguing question that has been raised, that developing these AI tools, uh, what ethical consents are required to build an artificial intelligence system, or even to shut it down? Is there something related to consciousness? There is. So people have not been so clear till now that whether these systems are conscious. But one thing I can tell you, that the people that are building these devices and algorithms in Silicon Valley in United States, they have not yet found out the starting point to make an algorithm of consciousness, but they have done everything else very 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 successfully. So likewise, my last point, consciousness does not fit into this chain of behavioral science or finding an emergent property. People may argue that, okay, neuroscience is still very naive, so give us another 50 years and we will come up with another a real theory that works for consciousness, in simply purely based on brain based terms, purely based on reductionist materialist view. But the point remains that even that it is there is a fundamental difference between, let's for example take the example of traffic jams or hurricanes, which have been explained as emergent property by a bottom up approach, or life itself. So whatever the definition of life we are satisfied with at the moment, to go to reach up to that definition, there were a bottom up approach. So starting from simple building blocks, then gradually adding on complexities, and then trying to explain a phenomenon as an emergent property. So but that's not going to happen with consciousness, because it's not an emergent property, it is not objective, it is the subject. So now let us first go back to our Eastern views of consciousness, and then I'll come back to these radical ideas, and that would be more meaningful. So I'll discuss about two radical ideas that David Chalmers or similar proponents they see promise in. But before that, we'll go back to our Eastern um, you know epistemology, the way people have come up with this structure, the logical structure of philosophy, Eastern philosophy. So there I would like to introduce to an anecdote of Janak Raja. So anecdote is 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 that Janak Raja, who is basically Sita's father in Ramayana, so he sleeps and then dreams a nightmare, and in that nightmare he actually fights a war against a very fierceful opponent, and then gets defeated, and then at the end of the dream he's begging for his life onto his knees, and then he's just you know since he's a king he cannot be killed, so he has to leave the city, and so he leaves the city, and very hungry, exhausted, he comes to um, um, a place where food is being served to the beggars, and he stands in the queue, and when his turn comes, and he comes with a little ball, and there's just one little bowl of food left, khichdi, and it pours he gets that food, and before he can eat it, a kite from somewhere comes and takes that food away, and he just shouts in agony, in hahakar. So that's the anecdote. So now, no, that's not the anecdote, that's a dream, sorry. So, and then in that hahakar, he actually awakens, he gets up. He gets up and finds out that he's sleeping in his favorite place, and within the palace, within the courtyard, and there are a lot of servants and maid servants, and the morning is just getting started, people coming up with water to, the way a king should live, normal daily life. But then he gets into a very deep dilemma. The effect of the dream was so intense on him that the whole day he kept uttering, "Ye such, wo such." Is this true or that true? It was so revealing to him. And then in his daily routine, there's a gathering for public, and there is a gathering for private people, and there is a sage from uh, you know nearby, who's known as Ashtavakra Muni, actually wrote the Ashtavakra Gita. So he translated actually. So he comes into the palace and see Janak Raja, and he can see through people. So he realized very quickly that what is the situation, and he called Janak Raja in separation and asked him a few questions. So he asked that, okay, Janak Raja, when the dream was going on, when you were defeated, not the dream, you were defeated by your fierceful enemy, uh, were there you? Yeah, I was there, of course. I experienced it. I got defeated, and I got hungry, and got exhausted, and the last bit of food was also stolen by a kite, and it was such a pity, such a um, awful situation. Okay, fine. So then when the morning began, and the servants came, and you started getting up and came to your kingly duties, were there you? Yes, of course, there were also myself. I was there, and I experienced it. I'm still experiencing the same day. बोले ओके, सो जनक राजा, ना तो ये सच ना वो सच, एक तुम ही सच, neither this or not that is true, but you are the truth. So what does it mean? It means that we, in our earthly, earthly lives, we undergo three states, one after the other. It's like a it's cyclic permutation. It's like A B C A B C A B C all the time. So it's like the awakened state, then the dream state, and then the deep sleep state. So in the awakened state, we are discussing, we are talking, and dream, we will go into our sleep, and then we'll dream. And if there is no dream, fine, so the conscience is very pure and etc. But of course it's not always the case. So dream is a big part of our existence and our experience. So when the dream occurs, we do not really realize that this is dream, we realize that this is reality. So that's another state. And when the deep sleep, it is, there is nothing, there is a void, you do not remember anything, you just uh, had a wonderful sleep, and you'll say that I just slept like a baby, I just slept like a baby, slept like a log. So these are the three states through which there is a fourth one which goes through this state, these three states. Why is it the fourth one? Because there are three states before. In this fourth state, it is in, according to the Mandukya Upanishad, um, it's called Turiyo or Choturtho, fourth, that is Choturtho, and from that root word tur comes Turiyo. So it's actually, if you realize that you are that pure consciousness, it's like a golden ornament. Sometimes the gold is ornamented like a earring, sometimes it is like a bangle, sometimes it is like a chain, but the gold remains gold, the material doesn't change. So the gold is actually going through cycles of being a bangle, being a earring, being a some other ornaments, etc. So it's that kind of an analogy. So this is one way to introspect and find out that we are that absolute reality which did not have any beginning, nor would it have any end, uh, according to the Eastern philosophy. And that is the pure consciousness, that is the subject, and everything else appears. It's an appearance, it's not the reality. The reality is the pure consciousness, the appearance is what we encounter, our all it's our experiences. So you can of course give an example of a movie, and Advaita Vedanta actually does that very much, that it talks about it talks about a movie, it talks about a screen, it is or a base of water, reflecting like a mirror, where things are uh, getting uh, you know uh, shadow casted, and then it is again disappearing. So it's coming and going, but the water layer remains unshackled. So it's like the space, if you have so much of cloud and so much of thunder burst and everything here, so obviously you'd feel the trauma. But believe me or not, when this will evaporate, when this will not be there, the space will remain intact, the space will not change, it will still remain the space. So that's how the Easterners think of consciousness. There is another little way of investigation that I'll talk about. It's called the five sheaths of experience, and it talks about the terminology is kosh, so it's called pancho kosh. So the first one is annamoy, Annamoy means the body itself, the body. So it's in investigating that who we are actually, what is our real nature, and are we the body? Because the body had gone through changes, but the one that we are saying I, it's the same I. It's referring to that same I that we used to refer when we were a boy, we were a girl, in our childhood, in our youth, and now in our middle age, in our old age. This I is the same, but the body is changing. It was like this before, and someday it will not be there, etc. So, of course, we are not the body. We are witnessing the body directly. It's part of our subjective feeling because we are conscious. Then comes monomoy, which pranomoy. I think pranomoy is the second. So pranomoy means vitality. So the all these air that is coming through our nostrils and going inside our cells, and all the impulses and uh, all the indicators of life, like all the pulse like motion, the heartbeat, the pulse beat, the inhale exhale, all these are called pranomoy. But they also are not the same. They were much more stronger when we were in our 20s, but gradually they are slowing down, etc. So we are witnessing that. So we are not that. Also, we are not the prana. Again, comes and goes. We are something else. So essentially, consciousness and the life force, they're not the same. The third thing is monomoy, where we look into our minds and there are feelings and emotions and whatnot. I mean, there are regrets, there are feelings of different feelings. There are feelings of joy and anger and hatred and whatnot. And then there are thoughts, different kinds of thoughts, not exactly feelings, rational thinking, thoughts. Whoever has done some scholastic studies would be aware of that. So again, we are observing that coming and going, and they are subtle objects of mind, and we are not those objects. We are observing them, we are witnessing them. That's monomoy. And then there is something, the fourth one is called Biganomoy. Biganomoy deals with a faculty of mind called the intellect, so that's why Biganomoy. And it deals with analysis and decision making and the rational thinking, the analytical power of the mind. And then the fifth one is called Anandamoy, which is basically a void, a thoughtless peace of mind, tunnel peace of mind, at least temporarily. If we get there, you'd realize that there is a void. So, and that's Ananda. That's in their terminology they call bliss. So existence, consciousness, bliss, Shat, Chit, Ananda. That's how it goes. So bliss means Ananda, and value. Basically, it deals with the value. What is this all about? As Stephen Hawking once asked these questions of what puts the fire into the equation. That's the key thing. Physics, it explores and explains all the physical reality and all the flux of this real world. But then what is it for? What is the value? What is the meaning of this life? I mean, if we were not conscious, if we were robots, something they call zombie, obviously life won't have that meaning, that value, that bliss that we are talking about here. Anyway, so after these 5 sheets of experience, we realize that we are none of these. Then there is a turn around. We have to imagine that there is a mirror, and when there is we are looking outside, we are looking into the world, we are seeking outside, but then at a point we have to just place a mirror here. So in that mirror, we will not look at the world, we will look at ourselves. So that's the 6th. So after these 5 sheets of experience, there is the thing, and that is something that we cannot grasp. they also in Sanskrit it's called avang manasa gochara. So it's very difficult to verbally explain what is it, but nearest analogy that people give is that of a shining light. So a shining light that, just it is there, and it is there for that reason. I can take the questions later after finishing my talk. So I'll be finishing in 10-15 minutes. So yeah, so when there is this shining light, the light falls on certain objects and then we get to see. So for example, if we just turn off the light in this room, everything will still remain there, but we will not be able to see that. So we will not be aware of it, will not be conscious of it. So that's consciousness. But then what is this life is all about? There is a layer of transactional reality also. So there is an absolute reality and transactional reality. They are intertwined, they are difficult to separate, they are almost inseparable. So there comes all these blessings of being conscious. So how should we live? What should be the art of living? What should be how should our ethical and moral and conscience grow, and what are the skills, how can we self improve? All these comes one after the another, because we are conscious, because we are not zombies. We have the feelings of pain and pleasure and suffering and empathy. So here there is this Buddhist concept of attachment. I just like to touch upon it, that okay, it's understood that we are pure consciousness, and like a shining light, the light is falling onto something and we are getting aware of it. But then what happens? We think ourselves as part of that movie, part of that appearance, as integral part of the appearance, because we get attached, and because we crave, because we are denied of what we crave at one point of time, and there would obviously be suffering, etc. So the entire Buddhist philosophy begins from there only, this self-inquiry. So that's why they call the rolling stone doesn't catch moss. So one has to roll over, move on, roll over, move on, and you have to leave, and just there's no alternative to it. So that's how it also shapes the religious practices or moral practices throughout the world. But now let's come to those radical ideas which I just mentioned before, which proponents of this hard problem of consciousness, they think that would be a key to success in this very difficult investigation. So one radical idea is that consciousness is fundamental. That's a very radical idea. Like space and time and mass, and in the 20th century, Maxwell, courtesy to Maxwell, charge. So these are the known fundamental elements of nature: space, time, mass, and charge. But so what does it mean? You cannot break it down. You cannot break it as a fundamental property. You cannot break it down. Using these we can explain things, like using the alphabets we can build words. It's like the alphabets. So consciousness, since it cannot be explained by existing theory of neuroscience and any kind of brain based terms, the next best thing that can be done logically is to include it in the list of fundamental properties or fundamental elements. So that's something has been proposed lately. Consciousness is fundamental. The second theory is called proposes that consciousness is universal. So what does it mean? It is the viewpoint, they call it panpsychism. So panpsychism literally means that consciousness is universal. So it's not restricted to you and I and Homo sapiens alone. Every creature, in if I'm allowed to speak a little Bengali, সর্বজীবে, এই যে সর্বজীবে এই কথাটা, it's very crucial here. So even the bacteria, the viruses, the proteins, the DNAs, the elementary particles, the photons, the electrons, the positrons, all these have some amount of precursor, at least some level of precursor of consciousness, conscious, subjective, raw subjective feeling, if that's the best way I can put it. But it does not claim that a photon is intelligent. It doesn't claim that the photon says that, oh, I'm always busy and running at the speed of light, and I never get to smell the roses. Not like that, but there is some rudimentary precursor of consciousness in everything that we know about. That's the second idea. And then going through that, this Giulio Tononi, he has proposed the integrated information theory. So that says that also comes up with some kind of mathematical formalism, which he terms as the Greek letter phi. So this phi is the information that has been integrated to a system. So simple system, simple consciousness, low information processing; complex system, high information processing, complex consciousness. So that's how he's trying to model it. And physicists do say that the fundamental laws governing the universe are so simple that they can actually be written in the front of a t-shirt, and this actually has that simplicity. This phi theory has a simplicity, but it's nothing has been proven. It's still at the level of proposition, and maybe you can argue that if consciousness is fundamental, then probably it is also universal. So that's another way to look at it. So that's where the subject stands at the moment. But as David Charms suggests, that one of these seemingly crazy ideas may have promise in the future, but this problem will not be solved overnight. So I think I'll stop here and we'll have questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. It is really a nice session. Anybody want to say something? Very short, because we don't have any time. Yes.
This is now, Professor Mohinder speaking. I just want to mention that thing. The author has spoken so well, but I want to add one thing. There is a beautiful writing of Swami Satyananda. He is the founder of the Vyas School of Yoga, both in Hindi and English. Outstanding, this entire thing has been explained there. So I would just suggest that author should at least read those things, and it will increase, and vision will be. Actually, you get lots of things, and so many things are explained there. So you can go through all the transcripts also. But he has taken very well. I just enriched my knowledge, and also I am very happy that we have taken mentioned all the factors. And this is my suggestion topic. It is published in both in English and Hindi. It is available from Munger, there will be ashram. Both these things are you will get it, and definitely you will getting more things which is written. This is only my suggestion.
Okay.
Otherwise, it is good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mojumdar. Now, anyone else want to say something? Okay, now I would like to invite our advisory board member, Professor Manutosh Das Gupta sir. Sir, is it possible? because your internet, there is some problem in your internet. Another sir?